Welcome to this edition of Safe and Sound. I'm Kirk Webb, your host, and with me today I have Darcy Helle, who is the assistant principal at Helle, Jr.High, and Dr. Erick Rask, psychologist for the whole entire school district of Helle Schools.
Yep.
So if you guys can do a little introduction of we'll start with you, Darcy, what is your job, what does it entail?
So I'm the assistant principal at Helle, Jr.High / the athletic director. So my main job is overseeing discipline of students. So kind of like a dean of students. I handle classroom management, working with the teachers and getting to know the students. And unfortunately, nobody likes to get the call from Mrs. Helle because it usually has discipline attached to it. And then I also run the athletic programs at the junior high and the White Mountain League.
Nice. So multiple roles.
Multiple roles, multiple hats.
Keeps you busy?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And Erick?
So I'm the Helle Unified School District's school psychologist, and my primary job is to work with testing and identifying kids that may have learning disabilities. That's my primary job. My secondary job is support the mental health services at the district level, and then so I work with all the mental health counselors at the different schools. And we try to provide prevention services and intervention services for kids that may be struggling with some mental health issues or just struggling with just being a kid.
So also, along with the students, you're there to help out even teachers and staff.
Absolutely.
So it's not just students only.
Right, we try to be a resource, or I try to be a resource to as many people as possible, because you just have different kids that come in with different issues.
Right.
And just want to give a little bit more aspect to what Mrs. Helle does. She does a lot more. She does a lot of support for the students that come in and just need some support. How do I get through my day? This is a rough day for me. So she does a lot of mental health work at her level.
And I'm kind of thinking a guidance counselor, kind of help guide them to being successful, right? And in fact, we're here today to talk a little bit about some of the difficult things that occur at schools, and not just only in schools, but out in the public and stuff like that. And in particular, bullying. And from your point of view, Erick, what are some of how do you even define bullying, stuff like that?
So obviously there's a legal statute to what bullying is. I think the part that I play a lot in is the kids that kind of are the silent victims, the ones that just don't ever say anything, and we kind of hear about it through either parents or we hear about it from peers that hey, Jimmy's not coming to school today, he has a stomachache again. And we find out that he has been being maybe media bullied or cyber bullied, or maybe he's been bullied in the locker room, and that he's ditching class because it's going on in the locker room all the time, or he's calling about a stomachache, or going to the nurse's office. And through, typically through a line of events, we find out that this student has never reported what's been going on, possibly for months, if not years.
So they're basically just absorbing the effects of bullying and not ever saying anything,
right,
and thinking maybe it's going to go away or whatever the case, right?
Yep, and it is what they call internalizing a lot of it, and it does cause illnesses, and it causes depression, it can cause anxiety, it can cause self-harming behavior, eating disorders, a lot, because all that stuff, because they can't control it and it's coming against them all the time, they have all these coping mechanisms which are not healthy coping mechanisms, and so you see the signs of this.
And so they probably don't know they don't have tools in their toolbox how to deal with some of these effects, so students like this, do they come to you and what's kind of the reaction some of the students, good or bad, that?
Well, I think some of what Erick said too, a lot of times when a discipline starts to show up and a student starts to come on the radar, once you really start talking to them and looking deep, it's usually something like that's at the underneath, it's the root of it, and so coming out, and they don't know how to communicate those problems beforehand, and unfortunately a lot of times it comes to our attention when it's already done a lot of damage. So we really try with our students to have them learn to communicate with any adult. It doesn't have to be any of the administration. It can be a teacher, it could be a fellow student, but just getting into the habit of reporting, right? And their perception sometimes is not visible to us, but through actions and through some of their behaviors, we start to notice that something's going on. And so communicating, I think, what's really going on is a key for us at the junior high.
So like an obvious one, a student that's generally outgoing and all of a sudden now becomes withdrawn, starts being by themselves. You probably, so those are kind of the easy things to kind of to observe,
like the sudden changes.
Right. But some of those are more subtle, and in fact, there's a process to how you get to start dealing with a situation like that. It's not all of a sudden you come and somebody says something to you, now you take care of it and the issue's over and done with, right? It can be a long drawn out process. And
well, it's through the reporting, and again, it can be reported through anything, but what the thing is we can't just take it from one side. We really want to take a step back and look at the whole thing. Where is it coming from? How does it look? And try to find a solution that's going to best fit everybody's needs. So and a lot of times the students just are having a hard time, right? They truly, as I don't know if you said the definition of bullying, but it's repetitive. It's something that it's constantly happening. And so sometimes when a kid's just being mean to another kid, they're like, oh, I've been being bullied. So working through that process too, and conflict resolution, and taking a look at what it looks like and having that conversation with them seems to help too, because sometimes they don't like the way they're feeling and they want to do something about it. So again, the reporting is really taking a step back and getting a big picture of what's happening.
Right. So how you have to deal with the situation is not just really simple and easy, and it's you open up the box and this takes care of this problem, right? It's like it opens up a big can of worms in some cases.
Right.
But when you're and at that junior high level, that's a tough age.
It is a tough age. I don't know if anybody likes going through junior high.
You've got a huge social change. You've got kids that have not kind of entered the change of life. You've got kids that are, totally comfortable with themselves and they're very social. And what we may typically have a conversation and harass you a little bit or tease you about something. Somebody who hasn't really got that maturity or that self-identity is like, oh my gosh, they keep calling me, a turkey in class, or they keep teasing me about the color of my shirt. And the kid that's self-confident and is okay may just like, yeah, I tease everybody about that. Yeah. But the kid that's maybe less self-confident is like, no, he bullies me every day in PE because he says my shoes are out of style or they're weird. So again, that's that perception. I'm just kidding. And on Darcy's end, I've seen that conflict resolution. She pulls them together and we tell the kid, hey, look, you're being mean. And the kid's like, totally didn't know I was being mean. Right. I'm so sorry. That's not how I meant it. I tease all my friends like that. And so it can be a quick resolve with some of those situations, but again, it's that investigation process of, okay, we're going to bring all the parties in and see what's going on.
Right, and so that, those kids that, don't have the social skills and they haven't dealt with, I know growing up, I grew up with a whole bunch of brothers. Yeah. And I was called Kirky the Turkey. Name fit, so that's what I had to wear and stuff like that. But so I was kind of teased and harassed at home, but I knew it was, but I also knew that something bad were happening, my brothers had my back. But I think, because we're seeing, I've been doing some bullying presentations in the schools and even at the 5th, 6th grade levels, and it's starting at that age.
Oh, very.
And, one of the things that, as I've been doing this, and maybe you can kind of help me out on this, see if I'm on the right track, but I started thinking about it is how, because I'll ask the kids, do you like bullies? Are bullies, is it okay to bully somebody? And I kind of turn it back onto them. Well, what about bullying yourself? And, so can we be a bully to ourselves and picking on ourselves and feeling bad? And I think that was something, and I've had a couple of kids come back after the fact and say, you know what, that helped. Because it's, it made them stop and think. Because I think too often people in general do that to themselves. Look in the mirror, it's like, oh man, I don't have any friends or whatever the case. But but I think all of us have worth. And now, how do we instill tools into these young lives so that they can? Because I think we all have the same goal in mind, is to have these kids become successful. And that's part of going to school and being educated, and because we're not going to be around forever, right? Somebody's got to take our spot.
Given those opportunities to educate, like you were saying, is so important. as these kids come into adolescence, even pre-adolescence, where you used to believe mom said, oh, you're so good looking and attractive when you're first, second grade, you believe everything mom says about you. Then you get up to 5th and 6th grade and people say you're ugly. Now you're believing everything your peers say.
Right.
Everything they say about you, you're owning. And you don't know how to create that identity. They're like, no, they're not being truthful. That's not how I feel about myself. And so helping them understand what truth is about yourself and believing in yourself, it's very difficult, and it's important that we offer those opportunities.
Right, and it's like, how do we increase a person's self-esteem and their identity of themselves, and that, especially in that junior high age, they're going through a range of all kinds of stuff going on, and puberty and everything else kicking in. And
well, and I think we're really trying to focus this year at the junior high on trying to teach that empathy piece for students walking in somebody else's shoes. You know, are you being kind and understanding? Because a lot of the times they don't like it done to them, and then sometimes they don't realize that they're doing it to other people. So it's really a self-reflection piece too, like how would I feel, and what do I want that to look like? So it's definitely something else we teach that's not in our curriculum, right? It's one of those
absolutely.
things.
And I can even, as I'm doing those presentations I do, I've looked back on when I was in high school, and I don't look at myself, and I don't think I did in high school either, that I was a mean or vicious, or I was pretty much stood in the back and was quiet. But I got to thinking, did I participate in bullying by not stopping other kids from doing it? And that empathy piece, I think that's where that's come in, is like, you know, because how often do we see kids sitting by themselves, and you know, and just a simple go by and say hi to them, does that make a huge difference?
Right.
And you know, so what are some of the types of, I mean, if you were to like define, I know we talk about there's always the obvious one, a kid beating on another kid over and over and over, like you said, that repetitive thing. But what are some of the other types that you're seeing in the schools these days?
Well, I would say social media is a big piece right now, especially with Instagram and Snapchat and some of those, you know, those online apps. Once you say something, it deletes, and the only person that saw it was the person it was sent to. So with that case, when we have people who come in saying I'm being texted or I'm being like social media, we have them do screenshots, some way of trying to document what's happening. And a lot of times the parents aren't aware of it. So it's really trying to partnership with the parents and have the students communicate with the parents. And you know, and I do have parents call sometimes, and they're at the end, right? They're upset, they want something done right then and there, but it's been going on for months, but nobody reported it. So it goes back to that reporting too, right? That's one of the biggest ones I see is social media. It's really taken a hold of these young students today.
And I'm kind of on the older side of life these days, and you know, I know Facebook, my wife and kids made me a Facebook page. I know, right? And that's why I'm saying, it's like I need to kind of pick up with the times. Snapchat, you know, and there's a whole bunch of different kinds of things out there, and it's like, how many, you know, as in your positions, do you guys even know all the different variations of things that kids can be using?
And I think that hits a huge problem, is even, you know, saying what you're saying, is that there's so many parents that have no idea.
Right.
We find about it incidentally because, hey, look, you know, we both have kids that are in high school, so we find about it, hey, look, this is a new app that's out, but there's a lot of what you would call deceptive apps. So like Snapchat, something, a picture goes through or a conversation goes through and it disappears, and so parents have no idea. But then what happens is you could do all kinds of things, like do screenshots, and now say somebody sent an image because that was their girlfriend or boyfriend at the time, and now, hey, you know what, I'm going to start sending this to all my friends, and so that's bullying. But if I say something to my mom, she's going to know that I did something, and I'm going to get in trouble, so I'm not going to say anything, but yet this picture is going around to everybody on the football team. And you know, and everybody's saying stuff behind my back at school, and they're calling me names, but parents are oblivious. Like, I had no idea that this was going on. I've had conversations about parents, do you let your kid have your cell phone in the room at night? Oh yeah, they have it in the room all night long. That really opens up a lot of invasion of your home, for lack of a better way, because you got people texting and Snapchatting your kid all night long. Well,
and there's so many, especially the smartphones, that I'm seeing those kids you know, even in the elementary schools having smartphones and access to, you know, there's some really crazy stuff out there and stuff that's not great. And in fact,
scary.
Yeah, Arizona is one of the leading states as far as abductions. And, you know, and I think all of that kind of ties in that social media it can be used for great things, but it can be very damaging too. And like you say, how many parents are really get into, and in fact, I'm wondering if, you know, I saw a thing on Facebook the other day, you know, Facebook or whatever social media allows us to be close to those that are far away, but far away from those that we're close to.
Right.
Right.
So and that kind of hit me. It's like, you know, that's true. I mean, that's pretty powerful. That, you know, are we addicted to? And in fact, another one I saw was a picture of, and it was a sculpture. I can't remember what country, Norway or somewhere, or Scandinavia country, and it's a park bench and 3 people on the bench and one space in the middle between the you know, 2 on one side, 1 on the other, and a space in between, and all 3 of them were on their cell phone, and the title for the sculpture was Addiction. So
yeah, go to any restaurants. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion about what you know, where culture is going. But that's
right.
I think in relation to the whole bullying process, that is stuff that even occurs in the school, because we have no way to block, because everybody's got data. So even if we block the internet, kids still have
exactly.
data. And you could be bullied from the time you get up till the time you go to bed. You can be sitting in the classroom and yeah, maybe your phone's off, but it vibrates.
Right.
And I know that it vibrates and I'm getting another one of those texts. And so now I'm distracted from learning because it's vibrating again. And you know, kids can get anxiety, they can get that depression because it's just that constant boom, boom, boom. It'd be like that kid that pokes you in the back in the classroom all night, you know, all classroom time.
Right. Well, and how much in the school these days is a lot of the work is done on computers and stuff, right?
There's a lot of stuff, yeah.
And so that opens up another avenue where emails and different things like that, you know, so is the access to the internet is just immense. So what are some of the tools that we can give these kids and even adults how do we stop this process? Where does it start? Where do we start to stop it?
Well, I mean, you're referencing to bullying, right? So I think the big thing is that communication piece, like learning to report, let somebody know, talk to somebody. If you hear something, see something, say something, right? Even if it's to your little sister or it's to a friend, and it doesn't matter who it's reported to, it's just they need to get into the habit of reporting it. And even if it isn't, you know, I did it. You told me not to do it, and I did it. Even if it's not bullying, right? Like, they still need to get in the habit of reporting it and how they feel and what made them feel that way, so that we can give them those tools that you talked about earlier, like learn how to communicate, learn how to problem solve, so that it doesn't feel like it's building up. So
it's almost becomes an opportunity for you to give them those tools to so find out exactly what's been going on. Okay, now have you tried this, or have you tried
self-advocacy stuff? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like if you tried walking away, sometimes walking away is not good enough.
Well,
you know,
I think you hit on a good point. So you know, she was talking about those victims of bullying, but then you mentioned that when you were in high school, were you a participant by doing nothing? And that's the other end of it. You know, are you telling people about your friend being bullied? Are you sticking up? Are you the one that's, hey dude, you need to go talk to the principal about these texts, this is not okay? Or stepping up and, you know, you need to leave him alone.
Because we don't expect these kids to jump in the middle of a fight and possibly get injured or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, so, and because when I look back at how I acted in high school, I wasn't mean or vicious or anything, but I let it happen. So did I become part of the problem by not saying something, you know, stepping up and or even just saying, hey, you know, I want to be your friend and let's go hang out. You know, that could have made a world of difference to this person. You know, who knows?
And talking about the empathy again, you know, even the school district is looking at that as a huge training of helping the teachers to teach empathy. in their what they do in the classroom.
Right. Because I know growing up, we didn't have the internet and things like that, so it was much different. So it's I think it's a learning curve for even staff and administration. How do we deal with this stuff? So we're all learning. But it's important to know that there's help out there. In fact, there's I know one that I tell kids is to text to the 741-741, and that's there's people on the other end of that line that are ready and willing and have the training to just talk to you, and if it needs to go to something different, if it's escalating, and that's an easy way to start with something too. But there's lots of other crisis lines or whatever. In fact, you even have private practice where you're working with people on different levels of mental health issues, and
it's that I think that we're a small town, but there's that community involvement. Let somebody know, and then if you're letting an officer at school know or a teacher, they're going to help you find the resources to talk to somebody. And if they can't help you, I think we're still small enough as a community, we can still reach out and get the help these kids need, just by talking and communicating.
Yeah, we do still have that small town atmosphere, and and a lot of people, my family, we've been here for quite a long time and related to a lot of people, and sometimes I think that kind of feeds into that problem is everybody's watching me, and but yeah, just being able to recognize that, and how do we go about making sure that everybody's included in things, but yet still with the athletic side of things, you still want to keep that competitive edge too, though. Right.
Which is it's there, and junior high is really sometimes the first time that they've been exposed to competitive sports. And so that can be challenging. It's a hard transition sometimes, but it's working through it, right? We feed to the high school. We want to make sure that the kids are safe. It is based on skill, and that's something that they need to learn. So far, I think we've done a pretty good job with their transition to high school, but it can be hard, and that can make them feel like they're not successful in the junior high. So we try to offer a lot of support to all of our students by really trying to build relationships so they feel comfortable enough to say, this is how I felt. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to change the outcome, right? But the solution for them is just maybe they need that one-on-one time and maybe focus on a goal setting for next year. So
and I know there's because not everybody's into sports, but there's lots of other programs. I know I like playing sports and things like that, but I never was good enough to make the team, and I didn't like sitting the bench. I had enough splinters as it was, right? So
they were wood benches.
I got into doing the choir and different things like that, and in high school I did yearbook. So there's lots of other opportunities and things, and that's where it's kind of cool that in your position, or actually both of you guys, you can, help guide a young student on other things that they can, because not everybody's going to be good at sports, and that's okay.
And that's one of the things they talk about, that prevention process, is get them involved with a positive peer group. Get them involved with some activity or something that they're going to have the supports and the social acceptance.
Yeah, because human nature, we want to be a part of something. Even
need a purpose.
Even the extroverts, or introverts, I guess it is, introverts, that they're just kind of
keep themselves.
But they still feel good and being part of something. So regardless of what it is, and we want to encourage them to, because there's a lot of bad things out there that it's not good to be a participant in. And so, any other last comments or concerns that maybe we haven't covered yet that you see as an administrator that?
I've already said it once, and I'll just say it again. It's the communication, learning to communicate, learning to report, getting over your fear of being accepted or believed. It comes to a point where we can't do anything about it if we don't know about it. And so they have to learn to report.
And that's not only the kids, but the parents as well, right?
Absolutely.
And if the parents don't take an interest in their child's life and the school life, but then all of a sudden they come and get all hot and angry and mad. You got a process that you've got to follow, and I think it's important. I think a lot of parents kind of forget that part, and you got to be an active participant in your
and
child's.
Early on too. I know, we have children and tough love, right? Thick skin. And sometimes we think they're going to be okay. And so don't let it build to where it's a problem and it's affecting their lives. So reach out, communicate. Like I said, we want to partner with parents. We want to make sure that the students feel safe. It's a safe environment, and that they have people they can report to, so that we can work on a solution that best fits the students' needs.
Appreciate that. Erick, anything else that you have? I think we covered a lot of the topics.
We did. I think if you're going to kind of wrap things up on some of the stuff I deal with, I think parents just need to be involved. Find out what's going on with your kid, talk to your kid, listen to what they're saying. Kids are not going to come home all the time and say, hey, I'm being bullied at school, by the way, but they're talking about, well, I don't want to go out and, I want to stay home. I don't want to go out tonight. Yeah, they're having a youth activity, but no, I'm not going to go. Listen to what they're saying, because sometimes what they're not saying tells you a whole lot of information.
Right, their body language and their mannerisms and things like that. And I really like what you said, that listen piece. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Safe and Sound, and we'll see you next month.